Now, if I didn't pass this exam, I may have had to delete this channel, but luckily, I was able to pass CFA level 2 on my first attempt in May of 2023. Now, the pass rate was 52% this go around, and that basically means that if you sat for this exam, you had a higher chance of passing than you did failing. So, congratulations to everyone who took that exam and passed. Now, this video really is for people who haven't taken the exam yet. I actually don't have a formal finance background. I didn't go to college for finance because many of you probably do have formal finance backgrounds and you may be struggling yourself. So if you're looking at me, you're like, well, hey, if this guy can do it with no formal finance background, I can definitely do it. So this is really me giving you a bit of an ego boost. All you have to do is just put in the work and the effort and apply some of these tips if they are good for you. So here are some of the tips that I have for you. The first section is what you will need. So again, I'm speaking from my experience. So this may be a want or a nice to have for you, but for me, it was a need. So that was the actual physical Wiley CFA curriculum books. That was the first thing. The second thing, a prep provider, I used Mark Meldrum. And 3, Microsoft Excel. Now, the second section is the process, how to apply those 3 things. So there's a diagnostic step, there is a prescription step, there's an execution step, and then you repeat it. So 4 steps. Now, when do these steps begin? Well, it ends on exam day, and it begins after you finish the curriculum and after you finish your first mock exam. So you are going to undergo a diagnostic of your actual performance on a mock exam. Now, we all know mock exams are a little bit harder than the actual exam. However, I think it is important for you to go that extra step to really drill down what it is that you do not know versus what it is that you do know. That will actually help you as you progress and get to exam day. So how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to open Microsoft Excel, and in a column, you're going to jot down all of the topics that are in the CFA curriculum. And in a row above, this is a table basically, in the row above, you are going to have a section for, or a cell for what you got right next to it, what you got wrong next to that, what you got right but guessed at next to that, what you got wrong but guessed at as well. Then for each topic, you're going to tally how you performed, and you're going to take a look at your final number and the percentage breakdown. Going a little bit deeper, you're going to also tally up which questions you got wrong that were formula based and which questions that you got wrong that were concept based. And I'll talk about how I define concepts shortly. But the reason why you want to do these 2 things in your diagnostic is because you want to know how much you're really know the stuff versus how much you're actually guessing. And as you take mock exams over time, you'll be able to see how this is trending over time. Are you taking more guesses as you're approaching exam day, which I hope not, or are you actually sure about an answer? You apply the answer and you're actually getting it correctly, which is where you want to see things trending. And you also want to see that you're getting less wrong that you think you're correct at. So that's one thing. The second layer is formulas versus concepts. Now, for me, I found that I was actually getting more conceptual questions wrong than formulas. Pretty much throughout the entire time, but I noticed that over time I start to see those concept questions, me getting them wrong, come down as I did this every single time I took a mock exam. This is important because this takes us to the prescription step, which is how do you really solve for these things now that you have all this information? Well, what I did was I took a look at all those questions that I got wrong that were formula based, and I really realized that, well, hey, this is just a matter of me practicing the formulas, committing them to memory, and that's an easy fix. And I found that that pretty much was all I needed to do there. At the time when I took the first mock exam, I hadn't gone through the process of, writing out formulas just over and over again, like Mark Meldrum and AJ from Straight Talks recommends. I basically did that this time around as well. For the concept questions, what exactly are those? Those concept questions are really those LOSs that don't have the action phrase calculate in front of them. Now, I realize that by going through this process and going through the mock exams, that really, and this is going to be like a dumb moment for many of you guys, it was for me, that the questions I was being asked were really tied to the LOSs. And I was just like, wow, I was really going through the whole curriculum thinking I had to know everything inside and out. But really, I have to just know the LOSs. And it sounds kind of dumb to say it out loud, but when you're on page like 231 in the middle of derivatives, you kind of forget that. You think you kind of have to know everything. So I looked at all of the LOSs, and this is where the physical books come into play. I took out a pen and then I checked off all the boxes of the LOSs that are at the start of every reading. And I checked off the ones that I knew, even the ones that I kind of felt pretty decent about. The ones that I just did not know, I left empty. Lo and behold, especially at the very beginning of this process, I had many boxes that were empty. So those were where I was going to plan my attack and really get good at understanding what those LOSs were. And again, most of those LOSs were not calculate LOSs. Those were things like describe or evaluate, things like that. So what I did was in between mock exams, I would basically jot down written notes and look at all the questions that I got wrong and just look at them over and over again, repeat them, memorize them, read things, and then more importantly, do practice questions that were associated with those LOSs. Then I would do another mock exam. Now, how did I organize my mock exams? CFA gives you 2. Mark Meldrum gives you about 3, or at least he did for CFA level 2. I decided to start and end my mock exam period with CFAI mock exams. In the middle, I did only Mark Meldrum mock exams. Now, as they say, which I think is true, Mark Meldrum mock exams are harder than the CFAI mock exams. So during that time when I really wanted to get really, really good with the curriculum, it was probably important for me to actually just focus on those Mark Meldrum mock exams. And they did a pretty good job, honestly, with mirroring what I saw in the CFAI mock exams. They were just way more intense and way harder. So at the end of this, doing this process over and over again, I found that my overall mock exam score went from 64% up to 68%. Now, for those of you who are familiar with what the CFAI recommends, they say that you want to score around 70% to feel comfortable with passing a CFA exam. I figured that 68 was decent enough, but still I was kind of on the edge. And honestly, I felt that on exam day, the exam was actually easier than the Mark Meldrum mock exams and also the CFAI mock exams. I felt that the exam honestly was easier because the questions were written very clearly. It was very straightforward. It didn't feel like they were trying to trick you. It didn't feel like that after I read a question that, oh, this could go so many different ways. I don't know what they're asking. I knew exactly what they're asking. So really it was just a matter of, did I know this or did I not? And sometimes exam day jitters did overtake. I remember one time I looked at a question and I was like, I know this, but it's not clicking here. Like I'm not remembering it. And I beat myself up on one of those questions. And, sometimes that happens. But I found that at the end of each half of level 2, those exams, I had about 30 minutes to spare. So how did I use those 30 minutes? I think this is important too to help you with your mental health between the end of the exam and when you get the results. I actually calculated which questions, I wrote this down, which questions I think I likely got wrong and which questions I got right. Of course, you have to be very honest with yourself. And I had a range of possibilities. I figured that, okay, on the low end, I probably got like a 66. On the high end, I got like an 80%. So the minimum passing score was 70% according to 300 hours. And my MPS or my passing score is between the MPS and the 90th percentile. Who knows what that actual raw number percentage is as far as how many I got right versus how many I got wrong. But I was somewhere in the middle between the 90th percentile and the minimum passing score. So, I was probably somewhere in the money or the ballpark of where I thought I performed, which was I was somewhere between 64% and somewhere on the low end to the high end of being close to 80%. Now, if you want to see how to actually conduct yourself, well, not conduct yourself, but see how to prepare for the exam on exam day, check out this video right here.